Hi guys, so today I'm coming to you with the what to buy first video for Scum. This is an update in the series. I have done what to buy first videos before for X-Wing Miniatures game, and this is just an update for 2018. It is currently January of 2018, so disclaimer, if anything comes out after this video, obviously it won't be included in this video. This is getting us up to wave 12 and 13 of X-Wing and everything that's included from there on back. So as a rule of thumb, to help future-proof this, I do want to throw out the fact that this game does suffer a little bit from power creep, and that means as new stuff comes out, it tends to be better than the old stuff. Some games have this out of control. It's actually pretty decent in this game, and they do a lot to try to make older ships still relevant. But because of the fact that no game is really immune to that, this is still going to be a rule that newer ships are 9 times out of 10 going to be worth you buying. So if there's something in wave 14 or 15 that comes out and you're watching this video like a year in the future, those ships would probably be pretty early on your to buy list as well. Now, that being said, I am going to jump into this and I'm going to talk about things based on, like, I'm going to group them up. And first I'm going to talk about, the things I think you should buy first, then kind of like top tier stuff, then like medium tier stuff, and then things you should maybe buy last. And I'm going to kind of group them into different sections. But I'm going to talk about them, and this is my opinion, but I'm going to rank everything based on a couple of different things, like value, like how much bang for your buck you're getting, how reliant they are upon other expansions. That's kind of a thing that makes something rank a little bit lower, because if something is really, really great, but in order to make it really great, you need different parts and different upgrade cards that come in other expansions, then all of a sudden maybe that's not the first ship you want to start flying. And competitiveness. If you want to play against other people, if you want to start playing in leagues, if you want to start going to other stores and traveling around and playing against other people's builds, or if you want to start doing tournaments, I'm going to rank things a little bit higher if they're very competitive. But I'm not excluding things that are fun yet not competitive, because the fun factor of this game, I mean, it's supposed to be a fun game. If something's fun but isn't necessarily competitive, I'm still going to include it. And I'm going to kind of talk about the difference between those if there's a ship that's really great fun but not competitive. And I'm going to talk about all of these things as I kind of give you the what to buy first for the Scum and Villainy faction. So with all of that said, we are going to jump into it. There's one other thing I do want to point out, is that errata is a real thing in this game. The game has been out for a long time, and so Fantasy Flight Games will occasionally put out an FAQ document, and in that document they'll also have errata for certain cards. The Scum and Villainy faction has definitely been affected by this, and the best thing to do is, if you're just playing casual at home with your family or friends, you don't need to worry about the errata. And because one of the things that'll do is, like, sometimes it'll change printed values on cards. This upgrade card now says this instead of that. Sometimes it's a clarification. Sometimes it's an increase in stats. But most of the time it's a nerf. And what nerf means, if you're not familiar with the technology, is just to make something less powerful. Because sometimes something will come out and it was too powerful and everybody started using it and nobody used anything else. So then they'll change it to where their game is a little bit more balanced. And they try to limit that, but it does happen. The game's been out for years and years, and so these things happen. So if you're concerned with errata and you want to know what things have been updated and what hasn't, I keep a link to the Fantasy Flight Games current errata list on Crabbok.com, so you can check out my website. I have an errata list section there for several games, but go to the X-Wing section. You'll get a link to the newest FAQ document, and I'll have images up there of most of the errated cards and some highlights of things that you should pay attention to. But again, you don't have to worry about that if you're just playing casually. But if you do want to maybe go to a tournament one day, you don't want to show up with a card and everybody's like, well, that's not what it does. So that's something to think about. So let's dive into the Scum and Villainy faction. So if you're playing this and you want to play Scum and Villainy, it's going to be a little bit difficult for you to jump into, because the Corset, which is the first thing you need, doesn't come with anything for the Scum and Villainy faction other than that basic play materials. So your range ruler, your movement templates, your dice, all of that stuff, your damage deck, the rules, the things that you need to play the game. Because when the game first launched, there was no Scum and Villainy faction. That didn't come out until Wave 6. So you had 5 waves of X-Wing stuff plus supplemental releases within there of just 2 factions. And then all of a sudden, then the Scum and Villainy faction came along. So You're still going to have to get a Corset. There are two. There's the red one here, which is from the original trilogy with Luke Skywalker versus TIE Fighters. And then you also have the blue Corset, which is for the Force Awakens Corset, which has Poe Dameron and First Order TIE Fighters. If you have to choose between one and you don't care, get the blue one. The blue one is the more up-to-date one, has the more recent rules, and will also have the current up-to-date damage deck, which is preferable. That's pretty much the standard. So I definitely would suggest getting the blue one first, but if you are going to stick with the game, I would suggest getting both of them because there are exclusive cards that come in each pack, although they generally tend to lean more heavily towards helping the Rebellion or the Empire, and not so much the Scum and Villainy faction, but most people, the longer they play this game, branch out and will eventually play more factions. So in reality, you're probably not just going to play Scum, but if you're starting out, and especially if you're on a budget, you're probably going to stick to one faction. So pick yourself up a Corset to get started. After that, what is kind of seen as the Scum and Villainy starter is the Most Wanted pack. I'm going to talk for a little bit about this pack because there's a ton of value in this pack. First off, you're getting 3 ships in one expansion pack, so that much is good. This isn't a cheap expansion pack, but compared to how much you get, and especially if you can find this thing on sale, it's a great deal. So you're getting a Y-Wing and 2 Z95s in here, but you're also getting the basic primer for the Scum factions. You've got all kinds of Scum upgrades, illicit upgrades. You get Y-Wing titles in here, so if you already have stuff for the other factions as well, you're going to get a whole bunch of stuff. The other thing that this gives you is this gives you Scum and Villainy ships and bases and pilot cards, for other ships. So if you played Empire and you have a Slave 1, you can now use that in the Scum faction. It has everything you need minus the ship to fly a Slave 1 in the Scum and Villainy faction. So I don't have the Slave 1 on this list because it's included in here. So you will probably want a Slave 1 at some point. But if you already have it, it's just giving you a free extra version of it. Same thing goes for the HWK. The HWK 290, or the Hawk, as people call it. If you have that for the Rebellion, this gives you a Scum version of that. And that's probably one of the better ships, the better Scum ships. The Y-Wing is actually really good too. But all of this stuff that you're going to get in here is very medium to medium high in terms of competitiveness, but just overall effectiveness. So everything that comes in here is really good. You're getting effectively 4 different ships worth of stuff because you've got Z95 stuff, you got Y-Wing stuff, you're going to get HWK stuff, you're going to get Fire Spray stuff, or otherwise known as Slave 1 stuff. Really good for that. So if you are a overall player of the game, you're getting your most value in this box here. So definitely, and you'll probably want to pick up an HWK and a Fire Spray at some point also, but only if you're getting this. You don't have to get the Most Wanted pack. Like if you have a specific list in mind, and you have a specific ships that you want to fly, hey, no, I want to fly, IG-88, and I only want to fly IG-88 and the IG-2000 ships, then you can skip this one. Like I said, realistically, as people play the game, you're going to play the game and you're going to pick up more and more stuff. This one gives you a lot for the Scum and Villainy faction. The next set is another combo set. This is called Guns for Hire. This one actually recently came out. This one just came out a few months ago, and this is just a phenomenal set. As a matter of fact, if you don't want to play any of the stuff that's in the Most Wanted set, then get this one first, because this one has a ton of good stuff. So 2 ships that were seen for a while as needing some love were the Kirax and the Star Viper. I never thought the Kirax was that bad, and that's this black and white one here. But the Star Viper definitely needed some help. The Star Viper was almost dead on arrival for some people, in that it never really took off and never really got a whole lot of attention. And this just comes with a lot of fixes to make these better. And it comes with multiple titles, so you can outfit. So if you eventually want to get other Star Vipers and other Kiraxes, that's fine. You can get those as well. But the stuff that comes in this one for this Star Viper and this Kirax are great. A lot of really good upgrades in here. This also comes with, your harpoon missiles. So the harpoons are really popular right now too. And all factions want those too. So, even if you don't want to use the harpoons, your buddies will want them. Maybe you can trade or do something like that, or just hold on to them, because you'll probably want to use them. Harpoons are really strong right now. But Guns for Hire, amazing, amazing stuff. Everything in here is just pure gold. And it's also really fun to play. Like, I think the Star Vipers are one of the more fun ships to play. It takes a little while to get used to them. So if you're a beginner, maybe they don't want to be your first ship you fly, but they have such maneuverability. It's tremendous. I think the Kirax would probably be a good first ship to fly, though. Although the new title makes it a little complicated on, you're doing a little extra math when you're gearing it up, but great, great ship. The Scourge is next. Now we're getting into this tier. So we did the combo sets, everything that comes with multiple ships. Now we're talking about the top tier of individual ship upgrades or individual ship expansions. And these are basically, these next couple are going to be the best ships, the best individual ships. So the Scourge it comes in at my, at the top here because of a couple of things that put it at the top. One is, as I've talked about in some of my other videos, the bombing meta is a big deal right now. And what that means is that a lot of people are using bombs. So many people are using bombs, it's kind of become running wild. Like you're not going to go to a tournament and not see at least half the players using bombs. And one of the reasons bombs are so attractive is because there's really not many ways to avoid them. And if you do get hit with a bomb, you can't, naturally you can't just dodge the damage. Whereas normally if you get shot, you have a chance to roll your green dice and maybe you take no damage from that. But there's a lot of bombs that it's just automatic damage and there's nothing you can do. And that's really become a theme over the last couple of waves, is this guaranteed automatic damage. And from a certain standpoint, it seems like it violates the spirit of X-Wing a little bit. There's all this guaranteed damage, but that's kind of where it is right now. So it's, at least right now, this is where the game is at, where you kind of, if you want to just get with the program, this is a great, great bomber. Now, despite it being just a great, great bomber for meta, it's also a fun ship to fly. You get Captain Nim in here, and the cool thing about this is that you're actually getting a fifth. Most expansions give you 4 pilots, right? Most of them do. Some of them give you a few more than that. But this one gives you a 5th one. It's another version of Captain Nim that you can use for the Rebels. So, again, like I said, in reality, you're probably going to eventually branch out and play multiple factions, at least at some point, at least a little bit. A lot of people do. And this one's giving you a little bit extra, so you're getting a little bit more for your buck here. And it's a kind of a big ship. It's very pretty. It looks nice. It's a good sculpt. Just comes with a lot of really cool upgrades. It's just a very, very effective ship, and it has a lot of stuff that works with it still in the same expansion, so it's not something that really relies on a whole lot of other stuff. It does have some things that enhance it in other expansions, but it's nothing that it needs. So I'll say that. But very good stuff. There's definitely things that make it better that you can find elsewhere, but on its own, solid ship. And even if you run it without bombs, it's still a tanky ship. It can also take a turret, for crying out loud. It's all over the place. Of course, you're going to run this with bombs, though. Next up is the Shadowcaster expansion, the Lancer class pursuit craft. This thing you may have seen in Star Wars Rebels. This is kind of FFG's love letter to the way turrets should have always been. And because it has this mobile firing arc that you actually take an action and can move and adjust it. So basically you have this big gun and you can turn it left, right, front, or back. And it's awesome. And that's kind of the way turrets always should have been, because it puts a little more of the skill back in the flying. You still get the advantage, because you still have forward guns, and then you have your mobile firing arc. But the mobile firing arc is very, very cool. It's a new mechanic they put into this thing, and I hope to see more of it because it's great. This is just a super strong ship. It's very, very competitive. There are a lot of Scum lists will run a Shadowcaster. It's just great. It's got a really well-designed turret. There's some really good pilots for it. This ship comes with a lot of really great upgrade cards. It's a little expensive. There are a lot of big box ships in the Scum and Villainy faction. It's just the way it worked out. But this one is one of the best. Next up, one of the original big box ships in the Scum and Villainy faction, one of the bigger boxes, is the Houndstooth. Huge ship. Very, very iconic. And I want to say something too. If you have certain things that you're gearing for, like let's say you got into this game because you wanted to fly bounty hunters, then you don't necessarily have to get this third. If this is a ship that you really wanted to fly, get it first. Even if something is the last thing on my list, if it's something that you like, get it first, because the fun factor should take priority. So if there's something that you really want, that ship, buy it. Absolutely. This is all just my opinion, but your preference and your enjoyment is definitely going to take priority over any, technical advice. So the houndstooth is a beautiful sculpt, and one of the things I'm going to say about this ship, though, if you get it, you're probably going to, it has kind of like a prerequisite that you should own at least one Z95. If you've already picked up Most Wanted, no problem, you've already got one. But if you didn't pick up Most Wanted, you may have a little bit of a problem here, because the houndstooth actually comes with, it has a title where it has the Nashta pup as a Z95 that you can kind of escape. Like if the ship blows up, you can fly out. Bosk can get in the Nashta pup and fly away. But it doesn't come with a ship for it. It comes with the token. Your card. It comes with basically everything else you need for the Nashta pup, but not the ship itself. So there's kind of a precursor here to saying, we expect you to have at least one Z95 to fully maximize this, and I don't think it says it on the box. And so I'm telling you here, if you don't have a Z95, you'll probably want to get one before picking up the houndstooth. If you do, it gives you extra value because it's giving you a different version of the Z95, although you can't necessarily just fly the Nashta pup. It's only there. It's basically an escape pod is what it is. But it's very cool, and a lot of people, like if you get really into this game, a lot of people have painted up their Nashta pups to have the same paint scheme as the houndstooth. Very cool. Very cool. This is a really, really tough, strong, hard to kill ship. It's iconic. It can, it has this enhanced firing arc, so it can shoot this auxiliary on the side. So it's got this full 180. It's a good. I think this is probably a good starting ship because it can shoot so much. It's less punishing for somebody who didn't maybe make the best choice in their maneuver. But it also comes with a lot of great crew. This can take 3 crew, so a lot of times people call this thing the party bus when you outfit it a certain way with crew that all synergize and do really nasty things to your opponent. But really, really cool ship. Big, not necessarily the easiest ship to store if you're using little tackle boxes because it's kind of awkward, but beautiful ship. Great thing to have on your shelf too. So if you just like the bounty hunters and you don't even play this game, this is a good ship to buy and just have on display. Next up, the M12L Kimogila. Kimogila, but I like to call it the Kimogila just because I like to be weird, fighter. Now, this is one of the most newest ships we've got. This is coming out in Wave 12, and it's a pretty strong firing arc considering a lot of the new stuff we got, like harpoons and the different ordnance that we've got. It's got a very special little thing that it has an extra little printed firing arc called the bullseye firing arc on it. And this one is a little bit more for the advanced player because it rewards precision flying a little bit more. And it's definitely kind of going back to the basics of X-Wing and in that, planning your maneuver and getting into the right spot and lining up that perfect shot gives you an even better reward. So that much is fun. But it's a very strong ship and has some very cool pilots and some great upgrades. And I think it's just a good overall ship. And it's, if you like to paint, I think it's got a lot of real nice smooth surface area too. So if you wanted to repaint this one, that's a bonus. I think it's a pretty good candidate for that one as well. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the stock paint job. It's just it's got a lot of empty, clean space that kind of is asking to be repainted. That's just one thing I think every time I look at it. So that was the first thing I did when I got mine. I repainted it. I need to get another one that I can have at least one with the original stock paint job as well. Next up, the Quad Jumper. The Quad Jumper is I think this is the only Scum ship that we get right now from the sequel trilogy. So as indicated by the blue, the blue X-Wing logo. And basically the blue X-Wing logo just means that these are ships that are in the sequel trilogy. It's not a standalone game. It's not a separate thing. It's just letting you know which timeline they're in. If they eventually do a prequel series of ships, which they have no intention of as far as I know, but if they eventually do prequel stuff, maybe we'll have like yellow X-Wing or something like that. But yes, so the Quad Jumper is an interesting ship because it's the only ship that can actually fly backwards as a maneuver. It actually has backwards maneuver. I also talked about the way bombers were kind of influencing the meta right now. And the quad jumper is one of those bombers that can actually work and compare fairly well with the Scourge H6. It has just about everything it needs internally, so it doesn't require a whole lot of outside support, and overall it's a pretty good ship. I don't think it's the prettiest ship on there, and it's kind of it's a design off of a ship that was really only on screen for like a split second, but despite all of that, despite it not being, maybe it's probably one of the more ugly ships in the game, it definitely has a purpose. It's not a bad purchase at all. And then we're going to move into the next tier, and these are ones that they're kind of like middle of the road. Maybe not your first purchase, but I'll talk about them a little bit more. So the Protectorate Starfighter, these are your Mandalorian fighters. These were seen in Star Wars Rebels. They've been seen before. They're also sometimes called a Fang fighter. Really, really great ships. One of my favorite ships in the whole game, as a matter of fact. So why isn't it at the top of the list? Well, because they're kind of like glass cannons. These were really strong when they first came out, but then the bomb meta kind of also took over, and these guys are relying on a little bit more skill. I think it takes a little more skill to fly these guys, so I don't think they're necessarily as new player friendly. What I mean by that is, they're rewarded for being at a very specific point. The whole concept about flying these guys is that they have to be at range 1, and each of your ships are pointed at each other. They basically want to stare you down and play like a game of chicken with you. And if they're facing you and you're facing them at range 1, they get all kinds of bonuses. But if not, they stand the chance of getting blown up, and that's kind of a bummer. And also with bombs, they have no way of all their defensive bonuses don't really apply against bombs, so they're very weak against that as well. So they still have a place in the game, and they're a lot of fun, but I would suggest getting used to the maneuvers of the game if you're a new player before you jump into these guys, because they might leave you kind of punished if you don't fly them well. Next up, the Kirax. So I do like the Kirax an awful lot. One of the things that is going to make the Kirax a lot better is that Guns for Hire expansion that we already talked about. And the reason I have this one a little bit lower is that if you already bought Guns for Hire, you already have a Kirax. And while you don't necessarily have everything that comes in this expansion, you do already have a Kirax. So it's like you don't really need 2 of them right away. But that being said, the Guns for Hire expansion does have some extra titles and stuff, so you can outfit more than one Kirax. So picking up a second one at some point is a good deal, because you're also going to get the stuff that comes exclusively in this Kirax expansion, including Talonbane Cobra, who is, I think, one of the best pilots in the game. He's a really great pilot, and you can only get him in this pack. So if you pick up a second one of these, then you'll actually be able to fly 2 Kiraxes with all the stuff that come in Guns for Hire, and you can upgrade them both and give them all the new goodies and have a lot of fun with that. Next up, the IG-2000. This was a very, very strong and very dominant ship for a long time. People would run what's called brobots, and it was 2 of the IG-2000s. And so the concept with this ship is, this was one of the launch ships, is that it was, for Wave 6, it was one of the first Scum ships to show up, and it has 4 different pilots, like most of the expansions do. They're all unique, but each version of the IG-2000 you get also has a title, and they share their pilot skills. So if you're running 2 of them, this guy, IG-88A's ability will also be copied to IG-88B, and B's ability is also copied to A. So the more of them you run, the more power it's like the Borg, and they have this hive mind. And so people would run 2 of them together, because 2 is all you can really fit in a list. People couldn't fit 3. So that's one of the reasons I have this one a little bit lower, is for you to really be able to run a good IG-2000 list, you really need multiple copies of this. And so that makes it a little bit harder for a newer player, because now you got to buy 2 of this, and it's already a big box expansion, so it's going to be more than your typical $15 expansion. And so having to buy 2 of them just to get the effect is a little bit unattractive to a newer player. There is another way to do it. If you've picked up a Shadowcaster, you can, the Shadowcaster comes with IG-88D, And he's a crew that kind of mirrors the abilities. Like, well, you now have the same ability of another IG-2000 ship that's in play. It can't be IG-88D, though, because it's a unique upgrade. So you can now run one of these with IG-88A, B, or C, and then let your Shadowcaster or whatever other ship you have IG-88D on has a crew slot, gain that ability. So there is still use for him, but it's kind of a corner case. But basically, this is a good ship, but you kind of need 2 of them. Or 4 if you want to run them in Epic, which is, I've seen it done. That's also really, really cool. Next up, the Starviper. So a lot of what I said with the Kirax is also going to apply here in the Starviper. The only reason I have it a little bit lower is because just Starvipers are still a little bit less, a little bit more underwhelming. I am more of a fan of the Kirax than of the Starviper, but only by a little bit. Starviper is still a cool ship, especially with all the fixes that we got for it recently, especially in the Guns for Hire pack. The Starviper, this is Starviper expansion specifically, is nice because of the pilots that come in it. Prince Zizor is in there, but Guri is actually probably the best, or at least one of the best Starviper pilots. I really like Guri. But another really great thing about picking up a copy of this expansion is you get auto thrusters, and auto thrusters is a really good upgrade. This is the only place in the Scum and Villainy specific upgrades that you can get auto thrusters. So a lot of players from who don't even play Scum and Villainy have picked up Starvipers just to get auto thrusters. And next up is in our middle tier is the M3A Interceptor. This one is going to suffer from a lot of the same problems that the Protectorate Starfighter suffers from, in that I think it requires a little bit of player skill to actually fly them effectively because they are glass cannons. The M3A Interceptor is also going to be, it's only got a little bit of hit points and it can die real easy. So a single bomb can potentially take it out. But there's something else. If you pick up one of these, you need to check out the FAQ, or I would encourage you to check out the FAQ, because there is a heavy sick title that has been errated, and this one actually gives it a boost, so that it actually becomes better. They realized, hey, we made the M3A too bad, let's make it a little bit better. So one of the title that comes in here called Heavy Sick, which you can use, actually gives the ship an extra hit point, and so you can check out the FAQ to find out that and other things like this. But not a terrible ship. I actually really like them, but I fly them a very specific way, and I think it's one of those things that you need to get a couple of games under your belt before trying to try out one of these ships. They're kind of cheap, meant to be a little bit like a swarm ship, but the real sweet spot for these is giving them a cannon, which ends up costing you a lot extra because you have to pay for the title that allows you to have the cannon, and then you have to pay for the cannon itself. And by then, it's not so swarmy anymore. But you can run these guys with cannons, and they're cheaper than a lot of other cannon delivery platforms that are out there. Next up, we're in the bottom tier right now. These are some things that maybe you can just get last. And the bottom tier doesn't mean that they're terrible, but there's reasons for them being in the bottom tier. Punishing one, last year nobody would have said this was terrible. A lot of people would have said buy this first. And the reason that this is so far down below on my list is in for multiple parts. And the biggest, the primary reason is that this thing has been nerfed so many times. It's like virtually unusable now. It's not completely unusable, but there's been a lot of changes to the way the Jump Master 5000 works. When this game, a little history lesson if you're a new player, when this ship came out, it was the first ship that had like an asymmetrical dial, so its left moves were kind of different than its right moves, and they thought it was going to be very predictable on how it moved. And to compensate for that, they made it really cheap, really really strong, and able to take all these missiles and just extremely strong. And it's got a turret, which means it can shoot anywhere. But what ended up happening is people didn't care about the difficulty of maneuvers because it had a really good dial regardless, and so it ended up not being predictable, and people just would fly it straight at you and kill you. And so people would run 3 of these, all with missiles, and their alpha strike was incredible, and they had so much hull, and they were hard to kill that it was just unbeatable, and everybody was flying Jump Masters. And they didn't even go with Dengar, who, sometimes people would run Dengar, and there were other lists. They kind of got nerfed. Some other upgrades that people were using got nerfed, so they were kind of nerfed by proxy. Then they were nerfed, and little by little nerfs kept coming until they finally dropped the hammer and totally nerfed this ship. Oh, so now when you buy this expansion, first off, you're going to get a card that isn't what it actually is. And this is, again, this only matters if you want to go play in a store or with other people in a league, in a tournament, something like that. The printed values on this card are not what they actually are in the game now. There are upgrades that are on this card that the ship's not allowed to take. There's going to be stuff that comes in this expansion that this ship can't even use anymore because they've nerfed it so much. So it's going to be extremely confusing. It's going to be confusing for a new player, and you're getting a whole bunch of stuff that you can't even use. So those reasons are why I have this so low. It's like become really, really familiar with the game before, and get really up to date on the FAQ and know what you're buying before you buy it. Because this one ship has been like the biggest thorn in the side of the game of X-Wing, because they made it way, so much better than it should have been. Now, I will say that running Dengar, basically the ace that's in here, with the title and some of the upgrades that he still can take, he's still a decent ship, and there are still some upgrades in here that aren't bad, like a tiny mind link, but it's just not great. It's not anywhere near as good as it used to be. There are still a couple of good things in here. There's still ways to fly this ship. It's not terrible, but for a new player, it's going to be awfully confusing, and it might, if you weren't aware of all the changes that were made in this expansion pack, you might actually get really, really annoyed, because even a tiny mind link was changed. So, almost everything in here has been changed, and it's been changed a lot, and that's annoying. Let's see what else we have. We have the Mist Hunter. The Mist Hunter doesn't suffer from the same problems that the Jumpmaster 5000 falls into. The Mist Hunter's just kind of blah right now. I wish it were better. So, a little story, like when the Mist Hunter was made, it was made to kind of resemble the B-Wing. Because at the time, the B-Wings were doing really, really well in the game for a long time, and they just started to get outshined by everything else. So I think that's what prompted them to make the Mist Hunter, so that the Scum and Villainy faction can have their version of a B-Wing. But the problem is, by the time this hit the game, B-Wings had already phased out, and nobody was using them anymore. And so we were finally, it's like, oh, you finally get a Scum B-Wing. And we're like, okay, I didn't want a Scum B-Wing. I wanted a Scum, this or that, or I wanted, more twin laser turrets or whatever it was at the time. So this ship has always just kind of been underwhelming. I don't really think it's that bad. I think it can be a fun ship to play. It comes with a cloaking device, so the Scum can have a cloaking device illicit that has a chance to blow up. So it's actually got some fun stuff in there. And so on the fun factor, this one's not bad at all. And especially if you're collecting bounty hunters, you're going to have this one. It's just, you're not. It's a ship that's going to be kind of underwhelming. It's not, it's not the fastest ship. It doesn't have the best dial. Doesn't have any surefire ways to do damage. So this was kind of made when having a ship that had 3 attack was really good. And now it's like, no, that's not. You have to have at least 4 attack, or better yet, you need to have guaranteed damage that people simply just can't avoid. And that's what it really boils down to, is that this ship was kind of already obsolete by the time that it came out, and still hasn't really, hasn't had anything done to it to make it fixed. And it's not, and little by little, so they release a new upgrade, like, a new system, and then this one can potentially be a little bit better. Every new illicit that comes out, this one can potentially be a little bit better. But I think maybe it's going to need a new title, like Mist Hunter 2.0 or something like that, possibly. But we'll see. It's not terrible. It's just I think everything that it could do well, something else does better. So that's kind of my justification for it. Lastly, I do want to talk about Epic, because I've talked about Epic in all the other videos. We only have one ship right now for the Scum and Villainy faction, and that's the Sea Rock Cruiser. We are expecting to get another ship at some point, because then we would have balance and everybody would have 2 ships. And basically everybody has like a smaller ship and then a larger ship. And, and the smaller ship's usually some kind of transport, and this one kind of fits the bill there because this one's very, very similar to the Gozanti. And then they also have like a larger Corvette type ship. We don't have that larger Corvette right now, so this Sea Rock is out there, and it's a big box expansion. This one's going to cost you about 60, 70 bucks depending on where you get it. So not at all a first ship for a new player, especially somebody on a budget. But here's what you do get in this ship. You get a lot, actually. So as far as epic ships are concerned, I feel like this ship was made less to be an epic ship and more to be a platform for them to just dump out a whole bunch of extra cards, because you get a whole bunch of interesting things that can go in here. For example, you get Jabba the Hutt, which does all kinds of shenanigans. He's a fun card. You get new M3A, because you get an M3A interceptor with an alternate paint scheme that comes with it, so you're getting a whole extra ship. But you're getting a new title for the M3A, and you're getting multiple copies of it, so you can put on your other M3A interceptors. You're getting new M3A pilots, so you're getting a whole lot of extra value for your existing M3A interceptors. And that's one of the reasons the M3A interceptor was a little bit lower on the list as well, too, because it's one of those ships that has its potential maximized by buying another ship. You don't have to have it, but if you wanted to have all the options for the M3A, you also had to get this. But this also comes with other upgrades too. It has some more crew, has a bunch of crew, but also comes with Pulsed Ray Shield, which is a nice upgrade for several different Scum ships. So it was just meant to be like a big boost to the whole faction, as well as being an epic ship. As an epic ship, it's all right. I haven't actually flown it yet, full disclosure, but nothing on it really screams powerful to me, because all the other epic ships, all the other factions have a Corvette that can equip a whole bunch of weapons and attack like 4 times in a round. This one can attack once, this one actually is kind of in between the Gozanti and the GR75 as far as power level, as far as what it can do. I think the Gozanti is actually really great because it can actually dock 4 TIE fighters, and then it can just like drop them in your face. You can end up taking like 4, maybe dock 4 TIE interceptors, and now you're taking 4 range 1 shots of 4 dice plus a focus or something like that. There's a lot of power that the Gozanti has that's kind of hidden. This one is more about a utility ship than an attacking ship, and I feel like that's kind of where the GR75 is. So it's for epic play, this isn't necessarily the best. If you're really interested in playing epic, I would probably lean more towards doing multiple IG 2000s, so a couple of IG 88s, maybe 4 of those. But it's up to you. Use whatever you like. The Sea Rock is very pretty. It's a great sculpt, but and it has a lot of great upgrades. But I don't think its strength lies in epic. I think its strength lies in what all else it does for the game. So that's what I have for the Scum and Villainy faction, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We've got the other Rebel and Imperial versions that are out there already. So if you haven't seen those already, check those out. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I am still running a giveaway right now, so the only thing you need to do to enter that, you can win an expansion of your choice in the form of a $20 Cool Stuff gift card, is just be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my other videos. It's as simple as that. Make sure you click the bell for alerts so you don't miss out on when I'm announcing winners or put out more videos. Sometimes, brand new stuff, you don't want to miss it. So thank you guys again so much for all the support. I really appreciate it, and you guys have a great day.